Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, I'm glad we have a few people here. I was reminded that this is the Albany County Fair going on, which I don't think any of us thought about as we were setting the dates. I was thinking that we had a lot of email communication back and forth since early June about setting the date around the dates the candidates were available, and without thinking about dates that maybe we had a lot of people. So, but I'm glad there's a few of you here, and you can relay the information you get from this back to your neighbors if they're off at the county fair or doing other things on a Friday evening. I'd like to welcome you here. I'm Nancy Lockwood. I'm the Voter Service Chair for the League of Women Voters of Laramie. I wanted to thank also my fellow League members for helping with tonight's House District 47 candidate forum, and to thank also the Albany County Public Library for allowing us to use their video camera that we have here. So this also will be taped, and there will be a link, and I'll get to that in a minute. So for people who aren't here, they'll have a chance to watch it after the fact. Before we get started with your questions, I'd like to remind everyone to turn off cell phones or turn them to silent, and also that recording of any kind is not allowed. Like I said, the forum is being video recorded by the League, and a link to this forum and our other League forums that we've had for the primary election will be on our League's website, and that's wyominglwv.org. On the table as you came in, you noticed there were brochures regarding the League, including membership brochures, and there are free copies of our wonderful publication, A Look at Wyoming Government, and I noticed someone had it with them if they want to hold it up. There we go. All right. And they are free, I'll remind you of that. We also have a few advanced copies of the Laramie League's Voters Guide, which will be published in the Daily Boomerang on this coming Sunday, August 7. Copies of the guide are also available at the Albany County Clerk's Office, the Albany County Public Library, and other locations around Laramie. There's a link to the Voters Guide, like I said, on our website, and if candidates brought any candidate information, it's also on that table out front. The primary election will be Tuesday, August 16, with polling places open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you're a registered voter, you may vote early by completing a ballot at the county clerk's office or by requesting an absentee ballot from the county clerk's office through August 15. You may also cast an absentee ballot, or you may also register to vote or change your registration now through August 15 if you also cast an absentee ballot at that time. And you can register or change your registration at your polling place on Election Day. If you have any special needs, there are voting accommodation and aids available at each polling place and at the clerk's office. The election judges can assist you, and you can contact the clerk's office to make arrangements in advance for assistance. Election information can be obtained from your county clerk's website or from the Wyoming Secretary of State's website. I don't think we didn't bring sample ballots to this one, did we?
No, I forgot.
So we don't have the sample ballots here. At this time, I'd like to give an opportunity for any other candidates that are here for other races. I don't think I saw any. I was hoping maybe some of our county commissioner candidates might have come, since we have county people here. Tonight we have candidates for the Wyoming House District 47. There are 3 candidates running for this seat, all of whom were invited to participate in tonight's forum. 2 Republican candidates, Julie McAllister and Jerry Paxton, and 1 Democrat, Ken Kasner. So since we have 2 candidates for the Republicans, this is considered a contested race, and it is the only one that is involved in the primary election. So the winner of the Republican primary race then will move on to the general election in November and face Mr. Kasner. So he gets an automatic pass, unless we got a lot of write-in votes for somebody. We will begin tonight's forum with questions for the candidates. Questions are to be written down and can be submitted at any time. There are pencils and paper from League members here. If you want to write a question and don't have a piece of paper, just raise your hand and we'll come and get it to you. Questions should be directed towards all candidates, not towards a particular candidate. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond to a question. We have a timekeeper up here in the front. This is Grant Showaker. He will signal the candidate by holding up a green card when time starts, a card at 60 seconds, and a red card at 90 seconds. The moderator may edit questions for clarity and appropriateness and may ask further questions to help expand upon an issue. In addition, the moderator may also vary the allowed response time based on the complexity of the question and overall time constraints. The moderator will rotate in the order in which candidates respond to questions. And candidates, please remember to speak into your microphones when responding and to turn them on and off. The end time after the questions will be just given to informal conversation. And now I'll turn the things over to our moderator, which is Ann Alexander. Ann has a PhD in economics and is the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs for undergraduate education at the university. And prior to her position in academic affairs, she was the Director of International Programs and the Associate Dean of Outreach at UW. So, welcome, Ann.
All right, thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you to everybody in the audience that's able to be here. I know that there are plenty of other things probably going on that you have interest in, but this is an important thing to be able to have a conversation with these candidates, and thanks to the candidates for throwing your hats into the ring. I know that's a lot of work. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. They always do a really great job. A reminder to our candidates, just to kind of make sure that we all remember this part, speak into your microphone. You have up to 90 seconds to respond to each question, and our timekeeper, right down here, who's already waved to you, will hold up signs to let you know when there's, green means you're good, 60 seconds, there's a, sort of watch out, and then there's a stop card. Anybody that's asking a question out there, we ask that the questions be directed at the office, not a particular candidate. I do have a few questions up here, but do feel free if something occurs to you to jot it down and hand it over to one of the league members who will hand it up to me. And I'll try to wrap us up no later than, whenever they tell me to shut up. Probably no later than 8, but I'm guessing we may be
Or when we run out of questions.
whenever we're done, when we're done with questions. So. And then, of course, we want you guys to be able to mingle with the public here. So, to keep the information flow pretty good, I'll ask you all to not necessarily make an opening statement, but maybe to start off with, what I'll do is I'll kind of rotate who goes first, so nobody gets to go first all the time. But maybe we'll start off here with Representative Paxton and ask each of you to respond to the question of maybe tell us what your motivation for running for this position is.
Sit down then. Okay. Well, thank you first of all to the League of Women Voters for having us here, putting this on tonight, and for all you do throughout the year, because I know you're busy. I guess my motivation, I have 4 motivations to be doing this thing, and I have Christy, Quaid, Cheyenne, and Kylie, my grandkids, and I guess my thing is that maybe by being in the state legislature, and I was a county commissioner before this, maybe I can make a small contribution toward making the Wyoming a little bit better than what it is, and at least preserving our way of life, our Wyoming way of life that we all treasure so much. So I'm not going to use my full time. That's enough.
You gonna flashcards at me?
Just go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to, when the moment you start talking is when I'm going to press the button, so just take
I
off.
was more joking with you than anything.
Oh, good.
My motivation for running, I was just speaking earlier, that's probably the hardest question to answer, honestly. What it really boils down to with me is I'm tired of talking about things and not doing anything about it. This is not easy to do, and it's not cheap, and it is not anything less than exhausting. You have to really care, you have to listen, you have to pay attention, and you have to identify problems and be willing to work with just about anybody on them. I'm just doing this honestly, put my money where my mouth is. I'm tired of complaining, seeing things go wrong, and no one doing anything about it or just making a bunch of excuses. That's not how I am, that's not how I was raised, and I'm sick of it.
Why am I running? I felt that our legislative representation absolutely ignored the people of Wyoming. Every event from capital construction, medical expansion, and athletic nutrition on down the line did not have the people's voice heard. Furthermore, a one-sided legislative system ruled it did not govern nor represent the people, for no plans were in place to support their actions. That's all I've got to say.
All right, thank you. First question from the audience here is, what issues distinguish your district from others in the state? And let's start with Julie.
What issues distinguish this district from other issues in the state? Honestly, I don't see a whole lot of distinction. Everybody's pretty much worried about the same thing. I've got friends all over the state, family all over the state, people everywhere. They're worried about medical expenses, they're worried about jobs, they're worried about taxes, they're worried about the economy, they're really worried about what the legislature did last session. Ken and I agree on that one. And they want change, they want to be listened to, but I guess overwhelmingly for me, something that surprised me in the amount of time that I've spent going out and meeting as many people as possible in this huge district, knocking on every door, talking to anyone who'll give me 2 seconds, is they feel ignored. They feel ignored, they feel left out, they feel like they're not being listened to, and they think that they're just, it's a smack in their face. They vote, they care, they're educated, some incredible ideas come from them, the most unlikely sources. But that would be my personal experience and how it's different, is I'm actually personally shocked, especially because I ran in 2014, and it's much worse now than it was 2 years ago.
Thank you. Mr. Kasner, would you like to address the same question? What issues distinguish your district from others in the state?
I think one of the biggest issues that distinguishes us from a lot of other people is, take for example, we were in a forum in Bags the other night. I drove down and I didn't see very many cars, and I drove home. In 2004, that was like dodge a bullet. We have a huge energy shortfall right now, and it's affecting our western part. We have little economic diversity on our eastern part, and we're all stuck in no man's land, to be honest. And I think we need to go into the 21st century, and we can do that by listening to you, the people. I don't think the people have a very good voice, and representation is their voice. And now they're waking up because of our economic downfalls. That's what makes us unique. We've got 3 counties as legislators that we represent, and each one of you is just as important as Laramie, Rock Springs, Cheyenne, whatever you want to talk. You're as important to us as they seem not to think. And that's why myself want to represent. I'm one voice, and it takes all of you to make it be heard.
Thank you. Mr. Paxton, would you like to address the same question? What issues distinguish your district from others in the state?
Well, okay. I think one thing that does distinguish this district is that, the largest town in the district is Saratoga. And so the district is made up of a whole series of very rural locations, and of course Saratoga being the largest town, and I don't know what the smallest, maybe Riverside with about 50 people, or Dixon or something, I suppose. But for the most part, most of the people in this district are either involved in some way in small business, agriculture, or in the mineral extraction industry. And so those are all very important parts of the culture of Wyoming, and of course the revenue stream for Wyoming too. The biggest challenge is that this district, if the Legislative Service Office is right, is 12,118 square miles. The next largest district in the state is about 5,600 square miles. So I guess that probably makes it unique. It takes in most of the Red Desert, and not a lot of people to vote for you out there, that's for sure.
Okay, thank Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Kasner. What do you see as the single biggest challenge to the communities and rural areas you want to represent in this new era of state and county budget cuts?
The biggest issue, excuse me, I sucked in a little water. However, the biggest issue is we don't have economic diversity and we don't have modern upkeep and infrastructure. Take, for example, in our district, we have the Deers. The Deers. Deers are Dixon, Elk Mountain, Encampment, Riverside, and Savory. They're the Deers. Now, you would think in a state that has huge amounts of natural gas, these communities would have natural gas. They have none. So they are dependent on propane. You take versus natural gas and propane, there's a huge difference. You also take into example, we have not the internet speed, we need to bring that up. We have wind turbines and all kinds of things around us, but we don't utilize it to benefit the people in Wyoming, in especially small communities. And it's about time we started saying, look at us. We need to have it too, so that we can build a diversity and an economy within the small rural communities of Wyoming.
Okay, Mr. Paxton, same question to you. What do you see as the single biggest challenge to the communities and rural areas you want to represent in this new era of state and county budget cuts?
Probably the biggest challenge is just to meet the needs of each one of these communities in terms of health and safety, for sure, being able to maintain a law enforcement presence, a fire presence, and fire department presence, and those kinds of things. And it's very, very consuming, or very costly per person, because there's an economy of size issue with all of us, and we're, this very, very small towns that we have, small populations, certainly presents a big challenge. And we have not been able to trickle down that money down from the state down into the counties and to the cities nearly as much as what I would like to. We have done, I think, as good as we could do the last year or two, but certainly that's the biggest challenge, I think, for these small communities, just meeting the basic needs of each one of these communities and providing the funding for that.
Ms. McAllister, same question to you. What do you see as the single biggest challenge to the communities and rural areas you want to represent in this new era of state and county budget cuts?
Along the same lines as the other gentleman, it's the economic situation, but I would disagree somewhat slightly. For 4 years, the legislature was warned that cuts were going to be needed. Instead of doing a 10% cut over 4 years, they did a 40% cut in 1 year. If you think about your household budget, budgeting's budgeting. Yes, it's more complicated at certain levels, but it's still the same concept. If your home budget was cut 40% in 1 year, what would you have to do to survive? And would your needs decrease? If you have a fire, you gotta have firefighters there. If you've got an incident, you need law enforcement. But on top of this, you're also dealing with an ongoing problem, one that is of incredibly large interest to me, and it's a major problem, and it does not have simple solutions, and that's healthcare in the rural areas. When people's medical needs grow, they've lived, worked, paid taxes, and voted in the cities they live in, or on the ranch they live in, or on the land they live in. Shouldn't they have the right to be able to stay in their home until their medical needs call for them to be somewhere else? It's a major problem that doesn't have a simple answer, but it's not getting addressed.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Paxton, we'll start with you. Are there natural resources in this district that you would like to see developed?
There are many, many natural resources within this district, and I think we have everything from coal to natural gas and oil and everything in between. A couple of the things I think I would really like to see is more development in the area of uranium mining. We've got an in situ mine just across the border over in Sweetwater County. I'd like to see more of that. But one of my big concerns is our natural resources, the national forest and the beetle kill trees we have here. And I've been working on an initiative to try to get a woody biomass industry started here so that we can make productive use of all these dead trees out here instead of letting them go up in smoke. And I'm sure you folks over here on this side of the hill have been getting some of that smoke from our major forest fire over on Beaver Creek. So I think those are at least two things that I would see that I think are underdeveloped right now, and would hope that we could do something about that. I think University of Wyoming could play a role in that, in that they should be working on some new and innovative and emerging technologies that might help woody biomass. And I know they're working on some coal things right now that's new uses for coal, and I applaud that, but I think there's some other things they could be doing.
Okay, Ms. McAllister, same question. Are there natural resources in the district you would like to see developed?
You'd be pretty ignorant to say there isn't, but what I'd like to see is maybe a little bit more of a realistic approach. Having done research for a number of years, there is a huge chasm between the university starting on something and it being able to be put into production and make jobs available. But what we could be doing is upgrading what we have before it's exported from the state. One of the very best ideas I've heard on this is upgrading Trona before it leaves the state so it's set up to make carbon fiber. Research process myself, looked through it. It's actually got a return on investment between 5 and 7 years for building the entire plant. That is amazing. It was a wonderful idea. It came from a voter. Actually, an independent voter told me flat out they'd never vote for me, but they had a really wonderful idea, and I listened to it and went, that really is a wonderful idea. Another natural resource I think is pretty well pointed out is our kids. We have a wonderful university. Education is pretty much up to them. They can choose from a number of incredibly well thought out, well prepared, different subjects. You're distracting me, thank you. That's okay, Grant, just had to crack a joke. But once they have their degrees, they leave. Especially if it's anything of technology, computer industry, engineering, there's not enough job for them. There's not enough industry of any kind. And sometimes as a legislator, the best thing you can do is stay out of the way with jobs. So natural resources is a big subject, but something has to be looked at individually for each challenge of that subject and each one of the resources and what we can be doing better.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kessler, same question. Are there natural resources in the district that you would like to see developed?
Well, I'm going to jump off the bandwagon of coal and jump onto the bandwagon of renewable energy. Believe it or not, we're sitting in the next decade and we're sitting blind. We're not acting upon it. Renewable energy is solar, wind, and natural gas. You have to have all three to make it. In Europe, they're way ahead of us. However, there's a county in Laramie County that has a natural gas-fired power plant in operation today. And the reason it's there is it's better for development. And here we sit, we have 6 major supply lines that go through our counties. We have wind turbines all around us. We have all this stuff around us and we're not developing it. We should be looking at what we could do. We have an industrial siding plant not very far from here called DKRW. It never went into fruition. It's abandoned now. But yet it had all its tests done, all its things done, and we should be talking to somebody and saying, hey, look, boys, bring that natural gas power plant right up here. We'll put it on. And then you can tie in your wind, you can tie in your transmission lines, and you can also develop solar. We have to think, yes, coal's a good, and so is natural gas, and so is oil. But we've also got to think, why do we want to keep going through the boom and bust cycles? We have to diversify. And diversification means look to the future, and you can't stop progress. And I'll stop.
All right, thank you. Ms. McAllister, we'll start with you on this next question. A voter says, or a potential voter says, I am concerned about the rural senior center and medical clinic in Medicine Bow. There are rumors going around that funding is to be cut in the future and they may be closed down. Rock River has none, so we must rely on them in a nearby county. Would you care to address that voter's concerns?
Very valid concerns. Medicine Bow, over the line, Carbon County, they got a 40% hit, just as almost every other county did. Albany County tends to fare a little bit better just because of Laramie and the university and the way that money is dispersed, so that's an incredibly valid concern. I was speaking with Miss Embry, who's one of the managers at the senior center up there when I was door knocking, and they seem to be fairly confident they're going to be okay as far as the senior center. The medical clinic, on the other hand, is something my family utilizes, and we're very happy to have it here and available to us. And not here in Rock River, but 17 miles away is pretty much here for Rock River. That's close. That's amazing. That's an incredibly valid complaint, and I'll get to the rest of my answers. I don't know. I don't know how bad it's going to be next go around. We have 2017, and then we have 2018, another budgetary. If they get hit again, I wouldn't be surprised if they close, if no one's looking out for them. I really wouldn't, and I'm not going to lie about that, but I'm not going to pretend I have the answers to it. We need people in there who are going to fight for it and realize those are really important places, regardless how much traffic they have, regardless how much money they make. They're really important to the communities, and they're important on the welfare of everyone in the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kasner, would you like to address that voter's concerns?
Yeah. Medical expansion was downturned 4 times in a row. Medicaid expansion. We should have taken the money. We should have put it to use for 2 years. We shouldn't have been afraid of it. We should have utilized it because we are rural. And if you talk to a lot of the hospitals and you talk to a lot of the people who work in the medical business, they will tell you that that should have been taken. It takes a huge workload off a lot of people. It stabilizes the rural community for a while, and we could have done it. Our legislature chose not to because it was us versus the federal government. That doesn't answer to the people of Wyoming. We got to get off that. We are we. Us versus them doesn't matter anymore, especially when your grandpa's sick or your mother or your son or anything else. We need to look at medical hard, and we need to do it through whatever's available right now. And that was available, and we let it go again. And we shouldn't have. Also, you have to look at the other thing. We're losing medical technicians and people because there aren't economic upturns that need to be done. And they need to be done here. And again, it could have helped us out.
Thank you. Mr. Paxton, would you like to address that question?
Sure. You know, that's two of the very, very important things, entities in these small communities. The senior centers, of course, their contribution goes way beyond just the nutritional part of that thing. It gives our seniors an opportunity to interact with other seniors, and there's so many activities around that. It's a good mental health issue, and you know, as long as I am in the legislature, we're never going to let those folks get to the point where we're going to have to start closing those things down. And it would be the last thing we do. I think most legislators understand the importance of those facilities and the importance of keeping them open, and so we'll find a way to fund them. As far as the health clinic is concerned, again, a very, very important thing. Rural health districts I know are struggling. Assessed evaluations going down. We're going to have to find ways to supplement the funding that would ordinarily flow into there. And again, you know, they have. I just talked to a person from Rock River or from Medicine Bow who works at that clinic, and they're exploring a lot of different options right now. And I think that's where the options need to come from the inside out. They need to come and tell us what they need, and then we react to that.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Kasner, will begin with you. If you are elected, are there any specific committees that you would be interested in working on?
Well, let me start out with, I think water's an important issue. I'd like to work with water. I'd like to work with other things such as the medical system. They all say it needs to be redressed. I wouldn't mind working with that. I have some goals like health cuts, education cuts. These are matters that have to be addressed. I wouldn't mind being on them. Fiscal community. Affordable health care insurance. It's an issue we've been dealing with forever, we need it. I wouldn't mind being on that committee. In other words, I'm willing to work, and that means work. And work means you have to do it with fidelity. So whatever committee I get on, I look at our state, our water's a big issue, all our things we've been talking for the last, well, I started running in 2002, they're still here. And I hate to say this, I'm tired of the suits and the ties and the promises in the skies. We need people that are going to work on these committees and who are going to come out with fidelity and say to you as the voters, I did the best I could, this is what I see, now what do you want? That's all I have to say.
Mr. Paxton, same question to you. If you're elected, are there any specific committees that you would be interested in working on or that you do serve on that you would like to continue serving on?
Well, for some reason or another, I'm on 2 standing committees, 4 select committees, and 2 task forces right now. In fact, I was at a task force meeting this afternoon. I had to leave early to get here. So the Education Committee is very near and dear to my heart. I spent 34 years as an educator. Before I retired, I would like to continue working on that. I also serve on the Standing Committee of Corporations Committee, and I enjoy that committee. It's a very diverse committee that has lots of challenges, that from telecommunications to funeral homes is kind of the range of what you cover in that thing. I'm also on the Select Water Committee that deals with a lot of the water issues, and you know, I just have to say that in a part-time legislature or a citizens legislature like we have, the real work is done in the committees. And so it's extremely important to have good representation on these committees, and so that's been one of my passions, and one of the reasons I'm on as many committees as I am is because I really think that you can get a lot of work done there, and certainly I think that we have made progress in the committees that I've served on.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McAllister, same question. If you're elected, are there any specific committees that you would be interested in working on?
To be 100% honest, no. I don't want the job so I can serve myself. I don't want the job so I can get on specific committees. If there's something that's important to my district, if there's something that needs to be addressed, and it's going to a committee I'm not on, go to the meeting. It's really not rocket science. Talk to the committee members because you can't be on every single committee. It's not possible. I will disagree with Mr. Paxton. This is not a part-time job. This is more than a full-time job. It will require way over 40 hours a week, which is the typical standard. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes over your life, and at that point in time, you might be doing okay at it, if that's what you're worried about night and day, 24/7. As far as committees go, no, honestly. Whatever committee issue might be going on anything that I have interest in, that my district has interest in, that my voters are concerned about, that's where I'll be. This is not part-time, it's full-time, and you don't have to be on the committee to influence them or find out what their needs might be to see clearly an issue you're trying to express to them.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Paxton. What ideas do you have for dealing with the state's current financial situation? Maybe give us some specifics. Tax reform, diversification, what have you, in 90 seconds.
Well, first of all, let me correct it. I said that we're a citizens legislature and a part-time legislature. I didn't say it was a part-time job. It's a full-time job. And I take it seriously. We have some real challenges ahead of us, I think, on the financial side of the thing, but we have the good fortune of having some folks who had the foresight to put a lot of money away in various funds that can be tapped into. Right now, the third largest revenue generator for the state of Wyoming is the return on the investments that our forefathers have made. So I think it's important that we don't dip into the corpus of those, but we certainly can divert a lot of the revenue, or some of the revenue anyway, that would ordinarily flow into those to build the corpus. And I don't think we did a very good job of diverting that this last session. I wasn't real happy with the end results of where we came out on the budget, but you know, when you're 1 out of 90 people, it's a little difficult to do that. But we certainly need to diversify, but that diversification thing takes a long time, so we've got to concentrate on the revenue generators that we have right now, and certainly I think the next election at the presidential level will make a lot of difference on how long this downturn lasts. We certainly have to do the things that we have been doing in mineral extraction, and we do need to find some more value-added things for coal.
Okay, Ms. McAllister, same question for you. What ideas do you have for dealing with the state's current financial situation? Maybe give us some specific ideas, tax reform, diversification, etc.
Well, first and foremost, I am adamantly, vehemently against raising taxes to pay for people's mistakes. It's illogical and it's unethical. It's not something I agree with. You're going to have to cut spending, but you're going to have to do it very carefully, very labor intensively, and through a collaboration with each entity that you're dealing with. It's a ton of work, but that's the way it needs to be done. If you just go in and make cuts without thought, input, and information, take yourself, go to the people. Go to the educators if you need to cut spending. Talk to as many as you can get your hands on. Get as much information as you possibly can. Sit down with them when it's not session. Say, hey, here's the problem. Do you have any ideas? You never know where the good idea is going to come from. You have to treat it that way. Make sure that the most important things are being left alone. But it's also really important to make sure there's no waste. If someone's getting an extra $10,000 a year when a recession's going on, are they going to tell anyone? Or are they just going to spend it? Probably going to spend it. So that's where one of my number one ideas comes in. We don't have nearly enough transparency in our funding in the state. It's absolutely ridiculous. You try to research it and find out where your tax money went, and you're not going to get very many answers. Transparency is your number one step. Your number two step is checking your return on investment for every dollar of tax money that's being spent. Is that going exactly where it needs to be going? Can we cut some of that down? Can we make adjustments? How can we do this without just killing a program like they did to the seniors on the tax return program? They killed that. It was $8 million. They just killed it.
Thank you. Mr. Kasner, same question for you. What ideas do you have for dealing with the state's current financial situation? And give us some specifics.
Well, we put all our eggs in one basket and we got thumped. And we know we were thumped. But did you know what's in the basket that we're not talking about? First of all, sales tax use. $18,816.35. That's sales tax. That's what every retailer, what everybody takes in, 6%. Retail trade produced, number one, $4,550,965. Number two is mining, quarry, oil, and gas. $3,558,613. Leisure and hospitality, $2,333,072. And public administration, $2,124,796. They're the top four. So out of that, what do we need to do? Well, we know about natural gas and oil. Let's diversify a little more. Let's get a natural gas in here. Come on. That'll help us. Leisure and hospitality. Are we really doing a good job in leisure and hospitality? We have a tourist system, but we could do a lot better. We could take, like, for example, this little community has one of the greatest little fishing lakes north of here, northeast, west of here. It's called Wheatland Number 3. You know how many people come up here to go fishing? Well, we should stop.
Greenwich with the rules. Thank you. I know. Someone has to have the rules. This is the last question I have in my hands, so I'm gonna wave off the timekeeper. You can listen instead and have you just answer this last question within a reasonable amount of time. But we'll start with you, Ms. McAllister. What do you plan to do to help the people in northern Albany County? Let's make it 2 minutes.
Instead of 90 seconds. Maybe 2.
All right, I just won't look for Grant to be throwing things in my face. It'll be good, right? Specifically in this area, honestly, it's really not that different than everywhere else. You need to spend the time. You need to listen. If you stop at someone's house and there's something important to them, going on in legislature, going on in committee, going on anywhere, and there's a development, call them. Let them know. They don't need to come to you. You should be going to them. Walk around your area, talk to people. Don't just go to meetings that there's certain, there's a lack of diversity of people there. Go to their houses, go to their businesses, talk to them, listen, pay attention. Tell them the truth. If you make a mistake, tell them. We're human. Just because you want to get involved and do something doesn't make you superhuman. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to trip and fall. And I'm usually happy when I make a mistake because it means I'm trying hard enough in my life. It's usually an indicator that I'm doing well. The bottom line for this area, it's the same as the rest of the district, same as the state. Talk to them, listen, pay attention. Doesn't matter what your backgrounds are. Like I said, the best ideas come from the most unlikely places. You have to have that attitude at all times, and you have to go to people and talk to them. They're not always going to come to you. You need to go to them.
Mr. Kasner, would you like to answer that question? What do you plan to do to help people in northern Albany County?
Well, you know the state is required by law to build infrastructure. And by law, what do we have here that's been neglected for a long, long time? Since I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming as a little boy, I used to come out here on an old highway called Highway 30. And it was robust. Bosler was running, everybody was running because the interstate hadn't been built. However, it's a 4-lane highway in some spots, in some spots it's not. We want to build a new Capitol Dome. I don't think we need it for $300 million. I'd like to see it be put to use out here on the highway. I'd like to see it as a 4-lane highway put through here, Rock River, all the way to Walcott Junction. Well, how would we rejuvenate it, and how would we keep the people interested in it? One, you make it a scenic byway. 2, you make it POV only and light truck. Semis can't come off. Semis out on Interstate E are like a nightmare. We all know that. But do you know how many people don't drive this road? And how many people would like to drive this road if they knew it was open? What would it do for your communities? To revitalize them. You'd have investors, you'd have motels, you'd have things, because people went off the beaten path. In my business in Elk Mountain, I've had people from Iceland all the way to Tasmania, and that's all the way around the world, because they want to get off. They don't want it there. And Wyoming people, and I live in Carbon County, I'm getting fed up with the interstate. I go up to Walcott by going, sometimes when it's windy and you know we have a lot of stuff, I go that way. Because there's less traffic. It can be done. We have to say to ourselves, what do you want? These people out here on Eastern Carbon County, we've had the Council of Governments, we've had county commissioners, we've had everything in the world out this way. And the Economic Development Corp and all that, and the Wyoming Business Council. And what have they produced? In 17 years of being a businessman on this side of the county, I have not seen much improvement. Now, if we had a legislature that's willing to diversify and willing to take, instead of capital construction in the capital, and put it out to our rural communities and strengthen our highways and strengthen our strengths, then we have opportunity. And I don't think the opportunity's here right now. And I don't know if it'll be, but you gotta have you as people to say, what do you want? I know the lady in Bags that I talked to yesterday, she started her business in 2002. And she now says, I'm just surviving. That's not what we want. We want you guys to, and everybody else in the state, to have a good life. And we don't need to just survive. We have to thrive.
Thank you. Mr. Paxton, same question to you. And by the way, I did get one more question that's really good, so you're going to have one more. But what do you plan to do to help people in northern Albany County?
Well, the best decisions are made with the most information, and best decisions are made locally, and I think that's the real challenge of this big district. And it is difficult to stay in contact with the people in northern Albany County. But to a degree, you have to almost rely a little bit on the folks that you trust here, the folks that you elect, to your town council and your mayor and so forth. And I try to make contact every time I come through here with those folks to find out what the issues are as I go through the area. You can't go around, you may be able to go around door to door when you're campaigning and talk to people and make a lot of promises, but when you really face reality and you find out how big this district is, people in northern Albany County deserve a lot of attention, but so do the people in Baggs and the people in Farson and Eden. And so you've got to optimize your time some way, and you do that by trying to stay in touch with key people who have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in their communities. And a lot of times that is your local elected officials, the county commissioners and the town councilmen and mayors and so forth. So that is the way you optimize your time. You can't go around door to door during a regular year. There's too many other things going on. You have so many responsibilities in terms of committee work, and of course you have 40 days in the state legislature where you're in Cheyenne one year and 20 days the next. So optimizing your time is a real challenge in a 12,000 square mile district like this one is.
Okay, thank you. So the last question, we'll start with Mr. Kasner. Think forward 50 years to 2056. I'll be gone probably, I'm reasonably certain, but the state will still be here, and maybe your children and grandchildren too. What legacy, based on your time in the legislature if elected, do you want to leave them?
That's an easy one for me. I want to leave in Wyoming. And the reason I say that is because we have issues of public land right now dealing us. We're thinking about giving it back to the state or having a national convention, a congressional convention, to see if we can be authorized to take the public lands back. I'm going to tell you right now that ain't going to happen on my watch. That's one legacy that'll be there. Because I've grown up here, just like this young lady and Mr. Paxton. I'm watching Wyoming be bought up, and it's killing me. I'm sorry. I want to see it not bought up. I don't want to see the rich entrepreneurs from all over the United States come in and say, okay, I'll give so much for the Brokaws Ranch, and I'll give so much for this ranch, and I'll give so much for that ranch. And we've got corporate ranching. We've got one guy outside of us that's $8.6 billion. And I'm sorry, he shuts a lot of Wyoming off to a lot of people. I can't fish Seminole, but only in 2 locations. One location's at the North Red Hills and South Red Hills, and the other's on its public dock on the east side of Seminole. Otherwise, his outfitter at the Q charges everybody else to fish our state lake $300. I won't pay it, but I have to fish. That's where I'm talking. My legacy is I want to leave this state for the people and the grandchildren and my grandchildren, because I'm not going to be here in 50 years. But I wanted to say, you know, that legislator didn't use his power. He earned our respect. That's all I want. I want to earn your respect. And if I can do that, it's because I heard you, I worked for you, I worked hard for you, and basically the bottom line is I want Wyoming to remain Wyoming because it's such a beautiful state. When I ran from governor, I don't care about 12,000 square miles, run for that office. You'll see Wyoming like you've never seen her. And I'm telling you, it's the greatest damn state I've ever been in. And when I went to war, I couldn't wait to get back here. And that's my feeling. I want to put it for that little girl sitting right next to her father. I want her to have some place to go, some place to see, that it will be in her memory because her dad took her there. I've lost some of my memories already, and I don't want it to continue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Paxton, same question. Would you like me to repeat it? Okay.
Well, there used to be a bumper sticker around that says, Wyoming is what America was, and I always really liked that. I'm afraid 50 years from now, I would hope that we can still have that bumper sticker and still be relevant. I think we have a lifestyle that's the envy of an awful lot of people. When you think about the safety of this state, we can go anywhere in the state and feel relatively secure. Certainly it can't be said for a lot of places. All you have to do is turn on the news and find out all the things that are happening around us. I think that we have extremely low taxes, which is excellent, and I would hope 50 years from now we can be in that same shape and still be able to provide all the necessary services that we provide now. And the quality of life, that's the most important thing. That's the reason most of us stay here. You know, I'm 5th generation Wyomingite, so I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter, but I did have a choice about where I went when I was an adult. And after the Army, I came back here, and I have no regrets about that. I would do that again, and I would hope that my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and the great-grandkids after that would feel the same way, that they would have that same attachment to Wyoming, same kind of quality of life. And we do that by protecting our natural resources and making it accessible to the public, much of our public lands, and make sure that when we do development that we take care of all those things that are near and dear to us, so that we don't destroy the environment, and make sure that what we hand to our grandkids is as close to what we have right now as we can possibly get. With a little bit more money wouldn't hurt anything.
All right, thank you. Ms. McAllister, same question. And if you'd like me to repeat it, I'm happy to.
Well, I think I remembered as well. I think that's an incredibly good question, and congratulations, you found something we all agree on. We want Wyoming to still be here. But beyond that, we have to strike this incredibly delicate balance. We have the oil and gas. We have excellent mining opportunities, from uranium to trona to coal to bituminous oil and beyond. But when you take those things out of the ground, there's also reclamation projects that need to be taken care of. When a lot of those companies have filed bankruptcy, that usually means the reclamation's not going to be done. That land's not going to be huntable, fishable, usable until the reclamation's taken care of and nature's got a chance to reclaim the land itself once we're done getting it put back together. So there's a delicate balance right there. We have another delicate balance. Everybody wants more diversity in our economy. It's been talked about for a really long time. A little bit of progress has been made, but not much. But if we take it too far, how much more populated are we going to get? How many people would be drawn here for work instead of Colorado? I don't think anyone who's living in Wyoming that drives through Colorado and has to go there for something, like the airport, is about the only reason I go there, probably doesn't want to live there. So we have to keep that in mind in everything we're dealing with. And it's pretty challenging. And that's where that key idea of making sure we're talking to people and listening to them and taking every spare second, every spare minute to listen, especially to everyone's ideas and thoughts. What's their most important thing about Wyoming? My personal favorite is hunting. I want to make sure that my great-great-grandkids can come back and hunt. It can be affordable and reasonable, with public land available, and the ability to be successful. That's an incredibly hard balance to meet when we're looking at all the other challenges. I will agree with Mr. Paxton, a little more money would be excellent to make sure we're not worrying or scratching our heads or needing to go into money that's been set aside, and thank goodness it was set aside. I'll agree on that as well. But that takes a lot of time, effort, energy, and self-sacrifice to make any kind of legacy. I don't care if I'm forgotten. It won't bother me one bit. But I would sure hope at least a few things I've done in my life would remain. And we can't pray for any more than that in our lives. We can't work for anything other than that. But if we want them to count, we better work really, really hard.
All right, thank you. I have no more questions in my hand, so what I'm going to do is up here and thank the audience for taking the time to come to this forum. This is really where democracy happens, and I'd really like to thank the candidates as well for participating, for running, for their very thoughtful answers this evening. And thanks to the Rock River Schools for letting us come, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. Plenty of time for everybody to mix and mingle with the candidates from now forward. Thank you all for coming, and please give them a round of applause. And
I'd like to say one thing. Thanks to the ladies of the League of Women Voters, because basically they went to a lot of effort to do this, and it benefits everybody to get the information out. Thank you.
And And men.
And men. Grant's in the League of Women Voters.
Okay, Grant. The timer is the most important guy.
Actually, I've tried to go unnoticed.
You're good at what you do.